Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. My name is Jeff Urbanchuk, Senior Vice President of Communications and Marketing at ACEC National, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio today by WSP U.S. Region President Joe Sczurko. Joe, thank you for coming in.
Jeff, thank you for having me in. Thank you for having me into Washington.
So you came on board as CEO of WSP in April of this year. Tell us a little bit about your journey to the CEO station, because I know that you had an interesting, joining into WSP through acquisition, and then you worked through a specific environmental line of work, and then, with the departure of the previous CEO, it became a search. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure, absolutely. I've been really fortunate throughout my whole career to be in this wonderful engineering profession, starting in the mid-1980s in a regional engineering company in Maine. So it's been quite a progression and quite a journey to what I'm leading today in WSP with 19,000 people across all the United States. My background is in civil and environmental engineering. Started, I think, like a lot of people do in our profession, with the basics, out in the field, installing wells, doing geotechnical studies, really getting a great foundation. Early in my career, not only myself, my mentors really felt that I had an affinity for the business side of the business. And thankfully, they advanced me through project management ranks. I had an opportunity to do an expat assignment very early in my career in Europe, and that globalization is, I think, really useful to somebody in our industry and in our careers. Once I came back to the United States, I then did what I call the zigzag. Got exposure in the proposal team, got exposure into business development, got exposure as a client account manager, and eventually migrated into operations management. And it was there that I really think I began to see the synergy between the three elements that I always think are important in our kind of business and our kind of industry, and that is clients, projects, and people. And as I progressed in my career since my first operational assignments, I've really tried to bring all three of those together. I'm fortunate also to have had experience in a lot of different industry sectors and markets. So beyond just transportation infrastructure, in the private sector with aerospace companies, major manufacturing, chemicals, oil and gas, mining, water agencies, transit agencies, state highway agencies, and now a lot of exposure to high tech and some of the newer industries that have emerged and become clients for us, and certainly key stakeholders. My final journey prior to WSP was with Wood. In 2022, Wood made a decision to divest of the environment and infrastructure business. At the time, environment and infrastructure was one of several businesses I was leading on a global scale for Wood, but it was really appealing for me to go back to my roots as an environmental professional and to be part of a pretty significant sales process as well. So I led that sales process for Wood, which culminated in WSP acquiring the business in September of 2022. Spent about a year and a half running the earth and environment business in the U.S. prior to being asked to take on the USA president role. So that journey has gotten me, as I said, through a lot of different industry sectors, working on a global scale. But I'll repeat it. The three things that throughout my career that have been valuable to me is keeping in focus our clients, the projects we execute for them, whether that's mega projects or the smallest job, and then people. Bringing all those things together is really what I think is the essence of my role as a leader in the business.
So it's interesting having all that exposure to different areas of industry, both within the civil world, but then, as you mentioned, aerospace, technology, everything else, really getting that full breadth of business in all international and national markets, right? And then being chosen through an internal search process to become the CEO for the U.S. at WSP. It kind of demonstrates to especially our younger members, that really the future is out there. It's just a question of taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves.
Absolutely. I spent a ton of time with our Developing Professionals Network, our DPNs, we call them inside WSP, 0 to 10-year experience folks. And they really are intrigued by career paths, career journeys, opportunities that are open for them. And I like to reflect on how things are the same since I first started in the mid-1980s, and how things are different. And the difference is now projects are much more complex. They're much more interdisciplinary. Frankly, we actually have people that are non-engineers working in our company that are so important to the execution of our projects, to delivery for clients. And I tell them what an exciting time it is. In my career, Jeff, it's never been better in terms of our client needs from those different end sectors, the scope and scale of the projects, really meaningful in terms of sinking your teeth into challenge. And I think it's a great industry. It's provided me a great opportunity and a great career, and I see that potential in so many of our people right now today.
I want to dig into some of those areas that you mentioned there, but before we do, coming in as a new CEO, you know, you're setting out your vision for what WSP in the United States should be.
Right.
How are you formulating that vision? How are you going through and talking to people, talking to employees, and getting that strategic view in place?
Right. I'm a little fortunate in I was already in WSP at the time of being selected, and as part of the interview process, I laid out, I guess, the standard executive roadmap: first 100 days, first 6 months, first year, 3 years. And I really spent time thinking about that vision, thinking about how I wanted to evolve the business. And that also sequenced very well with WSP going through its 3-year planning cycle, 25 through 27. And that's something we've started here just in the recent weeks right now. So I laid out my plan beforehand, but part of my plan was very much to get out in front of our offices, get out in front of our clients, engage with our employees at various levels. So not just executive meetings, not just targeting particular areas of the workforce, but really a broad cross-section through town hall events, through DPN breakout sessions where I got to talk to our 0 to 10-year professionals, even this summer talking with our interns. All of that was very important from an internal standpoint on getting a health check internal to the organization. What was working well in our organization? What did they see as the future? What did they see as the challenges inside the organization, among their clients, and in trying to be a more efficient, effective, long-term growth organization? The other major part of what I've devoted time to in the first 5 months has been external facing with clients. And consciously, again, going to different clients geographically, different clients from an end market sector standpoint, and really engaging them in 2 types of conversation. One, how are we performing? I've got to know, to run a successful business, where are we performing today? How can we improve today? But also listening to them, their vision of the future. What are going to be some of their future challenges? What are they worried about through their project life cycles? What are they worried about in terms of funding sources? What are they worried about in terms of finding people? Providers like us, but also people inside their own organizations. So it's been a lot of listening tour. I enjoy doing that because I learn a lot. And I enjoy also coming out of those meetings, connecting people in our organization, connecting the network. Finding out we've got a specialized technical skill in one city that can be applied in the next place. Finding out we've got a client who has a need and connecting that to an expert that I may have met across the organization. And I also am a very big believer in visible, transparent leadership. I think this is talked about a lot right now as kind of the post-COVID leadership attributes that people want. They want relatability, they want transparency, they want somebody that is going to be direct with them. And I often use the term MBA speak. They want somebody who strips away the MBA speak and talks directly about how to make their job and their role more fulfilling and how we can better serve clients.
So, you know, one of those things that is facing the industry as a whole, and you mentioned with clients about finding people. I mean, we're in a talent crunch, right? We're also looking at, we have our institute, research institute, is looking forward to saying, what's the firm of 2035 going to look like, and what is the makeup of the people within that firm going to be? You mentioned earlier about a lot of people who are not engineers in the firm who are very talented. You know, how do you see, both on the client side, what they need and what they expect, and really how technology is going to impact them and how they do their business, but also by how WSP operates, technology, AI, things of that nature. How are you trying to be as competitive as possible to attract talent in the marketplace, but also trying to position yourself to take advantage of all these opportunities that are coming out in efficiencies or technology?
So first and foremost, I think there's always going to be a home in engineering companies like ours, here domestically in the United States, for the well-trained, well-educated, crackerjack engineer in whatever discipline, MEP, civil, whatever. There will always be a home for that, and we will continue to have demand for that simply because those skill sets are highly demanded in other industry sectors. You come through in a great engineering program in the United States, you can do a lot of things. We're just hopeful that we retain most of those to the engineering community. I mentioned earlier, there's going to be also opportunities for people in allied science skills, as well as even some people with liberal arts backgrounds to contribute to communications, to contribute in other ways, in other forms of our project delivery. Some of the very best project managers are actually not people who are linear project or engineering trained. They can bring the different parts of projects together. So that doesn't restrict that project management community of the future will just be engineers. I think we really have to pay attention to the developing professionals, the 0 to 10-year experienced people. Our profession, through the compensation, through the great projects we work on, can attract people. Can we retain them? I think that's probably a more central question. And I think part of the answer to that retaining is being on the forefront of innovation, of being curious in how digital technology will evolve to benefit our clients, how things like AI will evolve, how this industry, which historically, if you go back, has not been one of the most innovative industries, begins to find ways to be more innovative. I am a big believer personally that in this industry, the innovation starts at the client face. So I'm not an advocate of creating some university on the hill where we house a few technical experts and let them out after they come out with something, because I think they're going to miss what's the fundamentals of client delivery and client needs. And I think the final piece to the puzzle regarding professionals, in addition to just retaining, is opening up to a broader landscape of where those resources may come from. Some of those resources we probably need to attract to this industry even earlier than college, even before internships. So something we're talking about in our organization is freshman year, sophomore year, and even back into high school. How can we begin to talk about what a great industry this is and attract folks? And then, as I mentioned, the world's a big place. There's an ecosystem of expertise in our industry. Some are resident in companies like ours. Some are resident in some partner firms. And those partner firms may represent disadvantaged businesses, historically underutilized businesses. I think you're going to see the ecosystem flex in the next 10 or 15 years to be even broader in terms of welcoming some of those other skill sets and resources. And then the final avenue is resources and people being trained outside the United States that can certainly contribute to our projects with the elevation of the engineering profession into other countries that have some excellent talent, some great skills, and have evolved under globalization to be a great resource base. I saw that when I was with Wood, and it's something I think we can bring to WSP as well.
Especially that talent that's trained in U.S. universities, but has to return. So I mean, the H-1B issue is huge for us, of course. Immigration policy. We have to make sure that we're not closing ourselves off to talent. And I think that you really raise a good point, and it's something that we're trying to address with engineering. We have an engineering a workforce committee now. We have an engineering workforce consortium that we're starting, because we're trying to figure out how do we reach people before they get to college. How do we reach people in early, and also to demystify engineering, that you don't have to be. It's the kind of thing where it's an industry where you don't have to be a whiz with science or math, right? You can have that liberal arts background, still contribute in a different way. And it's widening that tent to the industry.
In particular, I think some of the folks coming through college right now, mission and purpose of organization means a lot.
Yes, it does.
And I'm not going to get into generational labeling. I'm saying that if our profession, especially our profession, with everything we do to contribute to society, can articulate that mission and vision, I think we'll start really attracting a lot of people that'll say, wow, this is an industry that plays a central role in designing the future of transit. Wow, this is an industry that is providing clean water. This is an industry that's solving the electrification, decarbonization challenges. This is an industry that's making our buildings easier to work in, better to work in, more productive to work in. That mission, that purpose has to be incredibly attractive to kids that are coming through college. It has to be. And I think we're in a great position to do that. And I appreciate ACEC's efforts around workforce. It's a key issue for us.
And really our efforts are nothing without the firms themselves doing the work. I mean, that's the thing. It's and to that point, I mean, one of the big issues is resilience, of course. Resilient design in the face of a changing climate. Now we have Climate Week, New York Climate Week at the end of September. We're actually looking at going up to the Javits Center to do an event with our Engineering and Public Works Roadshow. How does WSP kind of fit in with the idea of resilient design, building a better future forward, and a resilient infrastructure for just a changing world?
That's really the core of the business. And it's the core of our mission going forward as a business and our vision of how we're going to contribute. It's why we've added to the company, through acquisition and organic growth, the services, the capability, and the people, because we're very much seeing climate change, resiliency affect all the customers across that entire end market platform that I discussed earlier. So absolutely transit rail inefficiencies that exist today, modernization that's needed in transit rail and with roadways and highways and bridges is absolutely fundamental, and a lot of things were not designed for the future climate conditions that we're going to experience. WSP has invested heavily in the earth and environment business, and that's because earth and environment ties much broader beyond regulations. Regulations in earth and environment was a 1980s, 1990s thing. Today, it's ensuring and enabling projects to happen, communicating with stakeholders, protecting environmental and water resources. It's why in the building space, we've really looked at energy efficiency and having some really top grade skills in mechanical, electrical, piping, plumbing, decarbonization, what we call built ecology. So when we build infrastructure, how can we make it more environmentally friendly, more resilient? And then our latest move with the acquisition of Power Engineers brings us 4,000 people to really help us fortify what we can do in the energy space.
Yeah, and that was a big acquisition because the Power was a big name in the energy space. How are you going to leverage that that know-how to really expand WSP's breadth in the power distribution and also and generation?
Right. Let me answer that question in two dimensions. So first, if I look at the power business, a substantial portion of their business is core power related services and electrification services for companies that produce power or transmit power. That work is independent of energy transition. That work is independent of climate change. It's fundamentally to support our economy, to support the data-hungry data center world. Just getting electrons to move from A to B through substations, transmission distribution systems, better, faster, cheaper. And that's core business. On top of that is the opportunity they present to us to play in the energy transition space, which we view, or I view, to be a 20 to 40 year journey. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to evolve with a lot of transformation from a hydrocarbon-based economy to electrification-based economy, and that's going to take some time. But thankfully, we're going to have a platform through Power Engineers to deliver on that. The other angle on the power acquisition that was important to us was we knew we needed to strengthen our capability and power for our core clients in the transportation agencies, at the airports, at the ports, among our rail clients, among our industrial clients. While we had those capabilities, we didn't have the strength of Power Engineers. And I know the Power Engineers folks had more challenges to enter those markets because they didn't carry the brand to be able to walk into a transportation agency or into an aerospace company and say, we're here to help you on your power. Now we have the best of both worlds. We have the customer focus and the relationships in those industries, and we've strengthened our capability on all things power. So we're really anxious. Looks as though that deal will close in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, and we're going to welcome that team on board with open arms.
So how does the power acquisition kind of inform your general strategy or growth and acquisition? How is WSP positioning itself in the marketplace? Because we're seeing a lot of M&A activity in the industry, increasingly so. How do you look at that, and how do you want to position WSP to be an effective player in growing in this industry?
Right. Here again, my first comment is there's a place for everybody in this industry. There's a place for the small local practitioners that are privately held, the mid-sized firms, the regional players, and then the large capability players. I view this as an ecosystem question, and we just happen to be one of the larger players in the ecosystem, and we're going to partner with those kinds of firms, as well as be open to potential acquisition in the future. We've built out the transportation business line vertical, property and buildings through acquisitions, earth and environment through acquisitions, now power. I would like to see us get stronger in energy. In water. Water-related services on top of the recent acquisition we made on energy. Water is another one of those needs that our clients have when we speak to them that's multidisciplinary. And the more that we can be client-facing and a client-centric company gets us out of being somebody who chases projects and rather developing long-term client relationships through our client account program. So I put up water as a key area. I think a lot of our owners, both in the public sector and private sector, also are trying to figure out and find the resources to execute their projects, which opens door to construction management and project management services, which again is an area of service we're heavily involved in now, but I see even greater opportunities to grow into it as a business. And then finally, power will bring us some capability in food and beverage, but anything that connects back to the consumer world through major industrial clients is important to us. So that encompasses food and beverage, provision of water, so clean water services, increasingly semiconductors,
Yes.
life sciences. I can't speak to whether the timing of those will be imminent, but those are attractive areas as we look at furthering the capability of our business and working with the kinds of clients that we want to work with.
Yeah, it's really expanding the breadth of engineering to not just, I guess, what everybody thinks of in typical civil or environmental engineering to this full service, full economy approach.
Exactly. We want to be home to the best technical scientists and engineers in the world. That's become kind of our internal leadership mantra. How can we provide a home to the best technical engineers and scientists? Now, some of those engineers are going to be those infrastructure, environmental, classic people. Some might be people that do logistics. Some might be people that do power. So we're opening kind of our aperture along with the opening the aperture of the kinds of skill sets we're going to need to serve our clients going forward.
That's fantastic. Joe, anything that we didn't hit upon that you want to make sure gets across to our audience?
I think it's a really interesting time in our industry from the perspective of the legislation that's been passed in the United States to enable a lot of the projects that we're all working on right now. It's an interesting time in that this country has said things like environmental protection are important. It's interesting that we know we have to solve some of these issues around power, grid resiliency, just a more resilient environment. And we recognize it's going to take time to go from a hydrocarbon-based economy to a different electrified economy. I think it's an incredible time for the professions that are in the business now. I think it's going to be an incredible time for the future. I think we need to do more, not to puff our chest, but to be humble geniuses. What we do and what we impact as an industry is amazing. And I know everybody goes to cocktail parties on weekends and gets the look of what do you do and how do you get paid for that? This really is a terrific profession. We do lots of things. And I want to underscore that point about the ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem of collaboration to solve some of these really challenging projects. And that extends beyond just big firms working with small firms. We recently signed the equity to as a member of the Equity Infrastructure Project because we recognize we need to work with communities and businesses that have been historically underrepresented. And we feel very passionately about that. It goes to underpin and support our commitment as an organization to ESG, which is passionately very important to me as an environmental professional, but also passionate to me as a leader. As a leader in the business, saying, what legacy am I going to leave? What vision do I want to paint for this organization so it can be sustainable for the future and successful for the future?
Absolutely. We agree on all points. I think we have to echo our essentiality. Doesn't mean we have to be boastful about it. Engineers aren't boastful by nature, but in everything that you do, it's one of those few industries or professions where you go in to improve something. You're brought in to make something better, and you actually leave something better behind for other people. And there's nothing to shy away from that. It's something to celebrate. So
absolutely,
it's a fantastic industry, and companies like WSP engaged in it is always great. And you have an open door anytime you're in town to come by, talk about what WSP is doing, and I really appreciate the time that you've shared with us.
Thank you, and Jeff, we appreciate ACEC's efforts, ACEC's support, and representing the industry, whether that's through workforce development activities at the state level and all the activity that's done there, and also through legislative efforts, which are important to, again, communicate the great things we do as an industry and our key role in the American economy.
Fantastic. Well, again, Joe Sczurko joining us here, U.S. Region President, WSP. And this has been an episode of Engineering Influence, podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we will see you next time.